Hi students, welcome back to part 3, chapter number 6, life process, respiration part. After discussion of nutrition, so when the food is digested and absorbed by the body in the form of glucose, this glucose should release energy in the cells. So for that, different organisms have different process of obtaining energy. So here the food which is in the form of glucose is 6 carbon molecule. This is broken down in the cytoplasm to convert them into pyruvate. Here the 6 carbon molecule is converted into 3 carbon molecule with the release of some amount of energy, and this is a common process which takes place in all the organisms in the cytoplasm. Here this pyruvate has to be again broken down to release energy. So some organisms, without the presence of oxygen, in the absence of oxygen, like yeast, fermentation takes place where they release ethanol and carbon dioxide with some amount of energy. So here the byproduct is ethanol, and this is also called as fermentation. As alcohol is released, alcoholic fermentation. Very less amount of energy is released here. In some of our body, in the muscle cells, they also respire in the absence of oxygen and release energy, and the byproduct will be lactic acid. This lactic acid accumulates in the muscles and causes cramps. There is nothing but pain. Then some of the organisms, like human beings, majority of them uses mitochondria for the release of energy. Here the oxygen is utilized to break the pyruvate, a 3 carbon molecule, into carbon dioxide, water and energy. There will be 3 carbon dioxide molecule released, and this is in the presence of oxygen. A large amount of energy is released. Here when the respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen, it is called anaerobic respiration. If it takes place in the presence of oxygen, it is called as aerobic respiration. So respiration can be divided into anaerobic, aerobic type of respiration. So anaerobes do not use oxygen for respiration, aerobes use oxygen for respiration. So anaerobes example, yeast, which produces ethanol, and anaerobic respiration, another one example, muscle cells, which release lactic acid. For aerobic respiration, so you can take all the mitochondria of the animal cells, which releases carbon dioxide, water and a high energy. This energy which is released during cellular respiration is immediately used to synthesize a molecule called ATP. ATP refers for adenosine triphosphate. This ATP is the energy currency of the cell. So adenosine triphosphate act as a fuel for all other activities of the cell. In this process, ATP is broken down, giving rise to a fixed amount of energy which can drive the endothermic reactions taking place in the cell. Since the aerobic respiration pathway depends upon the oxygen, the aerobic organisms has to use more oxygen for their release of energy. And in the plants, the stomata open and close. Here exchange of gases takes place. There is intercellular spaces in the stomata, so which allows the exchange of gases by diffusion. Large areas of the cells should be exposed to the atmosphere so that they can take oxygen inside and give out carbon dioxide, or they can take carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. We know that exchange of gases in the plants takes place by diffusion, that is higher concentration to the lower concentration. So here when photosynthesis takes place, carbon dioxide enter inside and oxygen is the major byproduct. and during night time the same plants releases carbon dioxide as a byproduct and utilize oxygen. Hello students, let us discuss now about the respiratory system in human beings. In human beings, the air is taken into the body through the nostrils. So here the passage is also lined with mucus as well as hairs. This mucus and hairs filters the air which comes inside from the atmosphere, and this air passes through the pharynx, larynx, and then reaches the trachea. As the air passes through the throat and reaches the lungs, there are some rings of cartilage which are present in the trachea so that it ensures the air passage which should not collapse, and the air should pass continuous from one part to other part. As a trachea divides into smaller branches like bronchi, bronchioles, and finally alveoli, which are balloon shaped structures filled with blood vessels. And actually these are the main structures where exchange of gases takes place in the lungs. And we have seen when we take air inside, our diaphragm flattens and the lungs will be raised and the chest cavity will become larger in size. And this is because the lungs fills with the air. As air enters inside, the lungs enlarges, the ribs move away, and the diaphragm becomes flattened. Now, the blood vessels are more here at the margin of the lungs. So we know that alveoli are richly supplied with the blood, and this blood comes from different cells of the different parts of the body and brings carbon dioxide rich blood. And when they reach to the alveoli, as the air comes with the rich oxygen, there will be exchange of gases in the alveoli, that is by the diffusion. Higher concentration of the oxygen present in the alveoli will enter into the blood which is having less concentration, and the higher concentration of carbon dioxide present in the alveolar blood will pass into the lungs which is less present in the atmosphere. So likewise diffusion helps in exchange of gases. So during this exchange of gases there will be a residual volume of air present inside the lungs. This residual volume is sufficient for exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. When you observe the body size of the animals which are larger, the diffusion pressure is not sufficient to take the oxygen from one part of the body to other part. So instead here pigments plays an important role. That is, red blood cells have hemoglobin as a pigment, and this hemoglobin has higher affinity towards the oxygen, and oxygen is taken inside the hemoglobin, and then this hemoglobin which is present in the red blood cells will carry the oxygen to different parts of the body. At the same time, carbon dioxide has affinity to dissolve more in the plasma of the blood. So it is carried in the form of a solution, that is dissolved form in the blood and reaches the blood vessels and finally to the lungs, and then it is thrown outside. Like this exchange of gases takes place in the human beings. If you have any queries, please comment in the comment section, and then you can like our video. If you like our video, please share it, subscribe, and we will come again with the next video, part 4, transportation in plants as well as in animals.